The encounter, a humble artist meets a proud gallery owner. The rain had just begun to drizzle when Marcus stepped off the city bus, clutching a weathered leather portfolio under his arm. The sound of his sneakers on the wet pavement echoed faintly as he approached the grand entrance of an upscale art gallery located in the heart of the city. The name Gallery Étoile was etched in bold, golden letters on a glass door, exuding an air of exclusivity and sophistication. Marcus took a deep breath, straightened his thrifted jacket, and pushed the door open. The inside of the gallery was a stark contrast to the bustling streets outside. A serene silence enveloped the space, punctuated only by the soft hum of ambient classical music. White walls were adorned with carefully spaced paintings, each illuminated by sleek, modern light fixtures. The scent of freshly brewed espresso wafted faintly from the corner, where a coffee station was set up for potential buyers and esteemed clients. Behind the counter stood Karen, the gallery's owner, a middle-aged woman dressed impeccably in a designer pantsuit. Her sharp bob haircut framed her angular face, and a pair of tortoiseshell glasses rested on the bridge of her nose. Karen was the embodiment of elitism, her every movement oozing a sense of self-importance. She barely looked up as Marcus entered, her attention fixed on her tablet screen. "Excuse me," Marcus began, his voice steady but polite. He approached the counter, his portfolio held tightly against his chest. "I'm an artist, and I was wondering if I could talk to someone about showcasing my work here." Karen glanced up briefly, her eyes scanning Marcus from head to toe. Her expression turned icy, and she raised an eyebrow. The worn jacket, the sneakers, the lack of designer labels, he didn't fit the profile of the clientele she usually entertained. She set the tablet down with an exaggerated sigh and folded her arms. "We're very selective about the artists we work with," she said, her tone clipped. "Do you have an appointment?" "No, ma'am," Marcus replied, his humility unshaken. "But I have my portfolio right here. I've been working on a series that I think might resonate with your gallery's audience." Karen's lips twitched into a thin, forced smile. "Our audience has very refined tastes," she said, her words laced with condescension. "It's not just about creating art, it's about understanding the market, the culture, the sophistication." Marcus nodded, ignoring the sting in her words. "I understand. That's why I'd really appreciate it if you could take a look. I've put a lot of heart into this series, it's inspired by stories of resilience and community." Karen sighed again, this time louder, and held out her hand. "Fine. Let me see it." With hope flickering in his chest, Marcus opened his portfolio and carefully laid out a few of his pieces on the counter. Each one was vibrant and evocative, bursting with emotion. One painting depicted a young child holding a bouquet of wildflowers amid a war-torn landscape, their face a mixture of innocence and determination. Another showcased an elderly couple dancing in a dimly lit kitchen, their love illuminated by a single, flickering light bulb. Each piece told a story, raw and deeply human. Karen barely spared the paintings a glance, before letting out a sharp, derisive laugh. She pushed the portfolio back toward Marcus as though it carried a foul odor. "I'm sorry, but this isn't the kind of work we exhibit," she said, her words dripping with disdain. "It's amateurish at best. Our clients are looking for contemporary, avant-garde pieces, something edgy, something provocative. Not, whatever this is." Marcus's heart sank. He had expected criticism, art was subjective, after all, but her dismissal felt cruel, almost personal. "I see," he said quietly, trying to mask his disappointment. "Could you tell me what I might improve on? Any feedback would be really helpful." Karen waved a manicured hand dismissively. "It's not about improvement. It's about having a certain pedigree. Artists who exhibit here typically have formal training, accolades, and connections in the art world. You can't just waltz in off the street with a sob story and expect to be taken seriously." Marcus felt his cheeks burn, a mix of anger and humiliation rising within him. But he refused to let her see him falter. He carefully gathered his portfolio, handling each piece as if it were a fragile treasure. "Thank you for your time," he said, his voice steady, despite the lump forming in his throat. Karen didn't bother to respond. She was already back to scrolling on her tablet, as though Marcus had ceased to exist. As he turned to leave, she muttered just loud enough for him to hear, "Another wannabe artist. They never learn." The words echoed in Marcus's mind as he stepped back into the rain. But as the cool droplets hit his face, washing away the sting of rejection, he made a silent vow: this would not be the end of his story. He would prove her wrong, not out of spite, but because he believed in the power of his art to touch lives, even if she couldn't see it yet. With renewed determination, Marcus walked away from the gallery, his portfolio still tucked under his arm, and a fire ignited in his soul. This was just the beginning. An unexpected opportunity: Marcus's work goes viral. The rain had finally stopped by the time Marcus returned to his small apartment, but the heaviness in his heart hadn't lifted. The dimly lit studio, crammed with canvases, paint supplies, and a second-hand easel, was both a sanctuary and a constant reminder of his struggles. He placed his weathered portfolio gently on the cluttered desk and sat down, staring blankly at the array of unfinished paintings surrounding him. Karen's harsh words replayed in his mind. Her dismissal had stung more than he wanted to admit. It wasn't just the rejection, it was the way she had judged him, not for his work, but for who she assumed he was. He wanted to scream, cry, or even just give up. But deep inside, Marcus knew he couldn't let this be the end. Instead, he turned to the one place where voices could be heard, no matter the background or attire: the internet. The leap of faith. With shaky hands, Marcus opened his laptop and began to draft a post. He decided to share his story, not to seek pity, but to let others know what it felt like to be dismissed so quickly. He typed out a heartfelt message. Today, I walked into an art gallery with a dream. I wanted to share my work, to find a space where my stories of resilience, love, and community could reach others. Instead, I was told my art wasn't good enough. That I wasn't good enough. But I know art is about more than pedigree or connections. It's about the emotions we pour into it and the way it resonates with others. So here it is, my work, raw and honest. I hope it speaks to you the way it speaks to me. He hesitated for a moment, his finger hovering over the post button. What if no one cared? What if Karen was right? But Marcus pushed the doubts aside. With a deep breath, he uploaded images of his paintings, hit post, and shared it across social media platforms. He closed the laptop, unsure of what to expect. Exhausted, he went to bed, his heart heavy but his spirit still flickering with hope. A spark ignites. When Marcus woke up the next morning, the first thing he noticed was the persistent buzz of his phone. At first, he thought it was just spam or notifications from apps he rarely used. But when he picked it up, his heart nearly stopped. Dozens of notifications had turned into hundreds. His post had gained traction overnight. People from all over the world were commenting, sharing, and praising his work. His inbox was flooded with messages from strangers, many of whom shared how deeply his paintings had moved them. "I've never seen something so raw and beautiful," one comment read. "Your work speaks volumes, thank you for sharing your story," said another. An unexpected opportunity: Marcus's work goes viral. The rain had finally stopped by the time Marcus returned to his small apartment, but the heaviness in his heart hadn't lifted. The dimly lit studio, crammed with canvases, paint supplies, and a second-hand easel, was both a sanctuary and a constant reminder of his struggles. He placed his weathered portfolio gently on the cluttered desk and sat down, staring blankly at the array of unfinished paintings surrounding him. Karen's harsh words replayed in his mind. Her dismissal had stung more than he wanted to admit. It wasn't just the rejection, it was the way she had judged him, not for his work, but for who she assumed he was. He wanted to scream, cry, or even just give up. But deep inside, Marcus knew he couldn't let this be the end. Instead, he turned to the one place where voices could be heard, no matter the background or attire: the internet. The leap of faith. With shaky hands, Marcus opened his laptop and began to draft a post. He decided to share his story, not to seek pity, but to let others know what it felt like to be dismissed so quickly. He typed out a heartfelt message. Today, I walked into an art gallery with a dream. I wanted to share my work, to find a space where my stories of resilience, love, and community could reach others. Instead, I was told my art wasn't good enough. That I wasn't good enough. But I know art is about more than pedigree or connections. It's about the emotions we pour into it and the way it resonates with others. So here it is, my work, raw and honest. I hope it speaks to you the way it speaks to me. He hesitated for a moment, his finger hovering over the post button. What if no one cared? What if Karen was right? But Marcus pushed the doubts aside. With a deep breath, he uploaded images of his paintings, hit post, and shared it across social media platforms. He closed the laptop, unsure of what to expect. Exhausted, he went to bed, his heart heavy but his spirit still flickering with hope. A spark ignites. When Marcus woke up the next morning, the first thing he noticed was the persistent buzz of his phone. At first, he thought it was just spam or notifications from apps he rarely used. But when he picked it up, his heart nearly stopped. Dozens of notifications had turned into hundreds. His post had gained traction overnight. People from all over the world were commenting, sharing, and praising his work. His inbox was flooded with messages from strangers, many of whom shared how deeply his paintings had moved them. I've never seen something so raw and beautiful, one comment read. Your work speaks volumes, thank you for sharing your story, said another. As Marcus scrolled through the overwhelming support, one notification stood out. It was a direct message from someone named Claudia Rossi, a name Marcus vaguely recognized. He opened it and read. Hi Marcus. I'm Claudia Rossi, an art critic and columnist for The Creative Eye. I came across your post and was absolutely captivated by your work. I'd love to feature you in my column this week. Can we talk? Marcus's hands trembled. Claudia Rossi was one of the most respected voices in the art world, known for discovering and championing underrepresented artists. He couldn't believe she had seen his work. With a mixture of excitement and nervousness, he replied, thanking her for her interest and agreeing to a phone call. The catalyst. That same afternoon, Claudia called Marcus. Her voice was warm and enthusiastic, and she wasted no time getting to the heart of the matter. Marcus, your work is extraordinary, she said. It's not just the technical skill, it's the emotion, the storytelling. Each piece feels alive, like it's speaking directly to the viewer. I want to write about you, but I also want to share your story. People need to hear about your resilience and the journey that brought you here. Over the next few days, Marcus worked closely with Claudia, sharing his experiences and the inspiration behind his pieces. When her article was published, it was nothing short of revolutionary. Titled The Artist Who Paints the Soul of Humanity, the piece featured high-resolution images of Marcus's work alongside Claudia's glowing review. Marcus's art is a testament to the human spirit. His pieces are vivid, raw, and deeply evocative. In a world that often prioritizes prestige over passion, Marcus reminds us of what art is truly about: connection, emotion, and the stories that unite us. The article went viral within hours, spreading across social media platforms, news outlets, and even international art forums. Marcus's name became synonymous with authenticity and creativity. Art collectors and enthusiasts began flooding his inbox with inquiries, and his online following skyrocketed. The world takes notice. As the days passed, Marcus's life transformed in ways he could never have imagined. Galleries that had once ignored him were now begging for a chance to exhibit his work. Prestigious auction houses reached out, eager to include his pieces in their next events. His paintings, which had once struggled to find a home, were now selling for thousands, then millions. News outlets picked up the story of the humble artist who broke barriers, further cementing Marcus's place in the spotlight. Interviews, TV appearances, and invitations to global art events followed. Through it all, Marcus remained grounded, remembering the journey that had brought him here. And somewhere in the back of his mind, he couldn't help but think of Karen and her gallery. The thought wasn't one of spite but of quiet resolve. She had dismissed him, but the world had embraced him. The seeds of change. One night, as Marcus sat in his now bustling studio, a notification popped up on his phone. It was an email from Karen's gallery. They were reaching out to formally express interest in showcasing his extraordinary work. Marcus smiled, a mix of emotions washing over him. He didn't respond, yet. But he knew this was just the beginning of a much bigger story, one he would shape on his own terms. With the whole world watching, Marcus had become not just an artist but a symbol of perseverance and the power of believing in oneself. A sudden rise to fame, from struggle to stardom. Marcus sat in his tiny apartment, the same four walls that had been both a refuge and a cage for years. But now, those walls were alive with energy. They were lined with canvases waiting to be finished, glowing under the soft, golden light of the lamps he'd recently bought, his first splurge after his initial auction success. The world outside, once indifferent to him and his work, was now buzzing with his name. The first auction, a turning point. It all began with an auction hosted by one of the most prestigious art houses in the country. Claudia Rossi, the art critic who had championed Marcus, had used her connections to secure him a spot in the lineup. One of his most personal pieces, Echoes of Hope, a striking depiction of a young boy standing defiantly in a storm, clutching a flag that represented unity, was up for bidding. Marcus watched the live stream from his laptop, his hands clammy with anticipation. He didn't dare to dream too big, telling himself he'd be grateful if it sold at all. The auctioneer introduced the painting with glowing praise, recounting Marcus's story and the emotional depth of his work. "Let's start the bidding at $50,000, the auctioneer announced. Marcus nearly choked. $50,000 was more money than he'd ever imagined making in a single sale. But the real shock came moments later, as hands flew up in the room and online bids poured in. 55. 60. 75. The numbers climbed higher and higher, Marcus's disbelief turning into astonishment. By the time the gavel came down, Echoes of Hope had sold for an unbelievable $2.3 million. The room erupted in applause, and Marcus sat frozen, tears streaming down his face. It was a moment he would never forget, the moment he realized the world truly valued his voice and his art. A frenzy in the art world. Word of the auction spread like wildfire. Major news outlets featured Marcus's story, describing him as a visionary artist redefining contemporary art. Social media platforms lit up with hashtags like #MarcusTheArtist and #ArtThatSpeaks. Fans and collectors alike couldn't get enough of his work, with many clamoring to purchase his remaining pieces. Soon, Marcus found himself fielding calls from museums, galleries, and private collectors. The Guggenheim wanted to feature him in their upcoming exhibit on modern storytelling through art. The Louvre expressed interest in hosting a temporary exhibition focused on his journey. Even prestigious art institutions in Japan, Brazil, and South Africa reached out, eager to collaborate with the artist whose work transcended cultural and geographical boundaries. Marcus was overwhelmed but exhilarated. For years, he had painted in relative obscurity, pouring his heart and soul into his work with no guarantee that anyone would ever see it. Now, the entire art world was at his feet. The commissions and collaborations. The requests for commissions came next. Billionaires and celebrities, eager to own a piece of his brilliance, flooded his inbox with inquiries. A renowned actress commissioned a painting for her mansion's gallery wing, while a tech mogul wanted a custom piece to hang in the lobby of his Silicon Valley headquarters. Even global brands approached him, hoping to collaborate on limited edition projects that combined his artistry with their products. Marcus approached each request thoughtfully. He refused to let the money overshadow his vision or dilute the meaning behind his work. For him, every brushstroke needed to come from a place of authenticity. He chose projects that aligned with his values, often incorporating themes of unity, resilience, and humanity into the commissioned pieces. One particularly meaningful collaboration was with an international nonprofit that worked with underprivileged children. Marcus created a series of paintings inspired by the children's stories, donating all proceeds from the sales to fund art programs in underserved communities. The project was a resounding success, further solidifying his reputation as not just an artist but a force for good. The media spotlight. With fame came media attention. Marcus was invited to appear on talk shows, podcasts, and art documentaries. He became a regular guest on panels discussing the intersection of art and social justice. His story was featured in major publications like the New York Times, Time, and Vogue, each piece highlighting not just his artistic brilliance but also his journey from rejection to recognition. One memorable interview on a primetime talk show brought Marcus's story to a wider audience. The host, a beloved figure in the entertainment world, asked Marcus what he thought when people referred to him as an overnight success. Marcus chuckled. "It's funny, people see the rise, but they don't see the years of struggle behind it. The late nights, the self-doubt, the sacrifices. Overnight success is rarely overnight. It's years of hard work, condensed into one moment when the world finally notices." The audience erupted in applause, and Marcus's humility and wisdom only endeared him further to the public. The transformation. As his fame grew, so did Marcus's influence. His modest studio apartment was replaced by a spacious loft filled with natural light and custom-built shelving to store his ever-growing collection of supplies. But Marcus never forgot his roots. He kept the same weathered leather portfolio, the one Karen had dismissed so cruelly, as a reminder of where he started. He also made it a point to lift others as he climbed. Marcus began mentoring young, underrepresented artists, offering them guidance and opportunities he had once only dreamed of. He established a foundation that provided grants and resources to artists from marginalized communities, ensuring that their voices, too, could be heard. The peak of celebrity. By the end of the year, Marcus had become not just an artist but a cultural icon. He graced the covers of magazines, attended high-profile galas, and mingled with world leaders and celebrities. Yet, despite his newfound celebrity status, Marcus remained grounded. He was still the same man who painted in his thrifted jacket and sneakers, pouring his heart into every canvas. And while he basked in his success, he couldn't help but think about the gallery where it all began. The memory of Karen's dismissal lingered in his mind, not as a wound, but as a reminder of how far he had come. He knew that someday soon, he would return, not as the struggling artist she had mocked, but as a force to be reckoned with. For now, though, Marcus focused on his work, his passion burning brighter than ever. His rise to fame had been sudden, but it was far from fleeting. Marcus was here to stay, and the world couldn't wait to see what he would create next. The tables turn, Marcus buys the gallery. Months after Marcus's meteoric rise to fame, his life was unrecognizable. He was no longer the struggling artist scraping together funds for paint supplies. Instead, he was a household name, sought after by collectors, galleries, and art institutions worldwide. Yet, despite all the success, one memory lingered at the back of his mind like a thorn: his encounter with Karen, the gallery owner who had dismissed him so cruelly. One evening, as Marcus relaxed in his spacious studio, his assistant, Alicia, handed him a stack of articles about the art world's current happenings. Among them was a small piece about Gallery Étoile. Marcus's heart skipped a beat as he read the headline: "Prominent Gallery Faces Financial Troubles Amid Changing Art Trends." The article detailed how Karen's gallery, once a staple of exclusivity and success, was now faltering. Poor decisions, a lack of innovation, and increased competition from more inclusive, progressive galleries had left it struggling to stay afloat. Attendance was dwindling, and many of the artists Karen once showcased had moved on to more prestigious venues. The gallery was rumored to be on the brink of bankruptcy. Marcus leaned back in his chair, the article resting in his hands. He felt a pang of bittersweet satisfaction. The universe, it seemed, had a way of balancing the scales. But as he thought more about it, Marcus realized he had an opportunity, not for revenge, but for something greater. The silent purchase. Over the next few weeks, Marcus quietly orchestrated the purchase of Gallery Étoile. Through a series of intermediaries and legal maneuvers, he became the gallery's majority shareholder. He insisted on anonymity throughout the process, ensuring that Karen remained unaware of his involvement. The gallery was in worse shape than he had anticipated. Financial records revealed mounting debt, declining sales, and a significant loss of reputation within the art community. Marcus's advisors questioned the decision to invest in such a failing enterprise, but he stood firm. "This isn't just about business," Marcus explained. "It's about creating something meaningful, turning this gallery into a space that celebrates all kinds of art and artists, not just the ones deemed acceptable by gatekeepers." The reveal. The day finally came for Marcus to visit the gallery as its new owner. He hadn't stepped foot inside since that fateful day when Karen had dismissed him, but now, things were different. Dressed in a tailored suit, Marcus exuded confidence as he walked through the doors. The gallery was eerily quiet, a shadow of its former self. The walls, once adorned with high-end contemporary pieces, now showcased uninspired works from lesser-known artists. A handful of visitors wandered the space, their expressions more curious than impressed. Karen stood behind the counter, her once polished demeanor now tinged with weariness. She didn't recognize Marcus immediately, her mind was likely occupied with the stress of running a failing business. When their eyes met, her polite, professional smile froze. "Good afternoon," Marcus said, his voice calm yet commanding. "I believe we need to talk." Karen's brow furrowed in confusion. "I'm sorry, do I know you?" she asked, her tone cautious. Marcus set a briefcase on the counter and opened it, pulling out a stack of documents. He slid them across the counter. "You should. I'm your new boss." Karen's face went pale as she scanned the papers, her hands trembling. The realization hit her like a tidal wave. You're the new investor?" she stammered. "How, why?" Marcus leaned on the counter, his gaze steady. "Does it matter?" "What does matter is that this gallery is now under new management." "My management?" Karen was visibly shaken, her mind racing to process what was happening. "But why would someone like you?" She stopped herself mid-sentence, realizing the weight of her words. Marcus tilted his head, a faint smile playing on his lips. "Someone like me? You mean an artist you once told wasn't good enough for your gallery?" The color drained from Karen's face as the memory came rushing back. She glanced at him, then at the portfolio still tucked under his arm, a portfolio she had once dismissed without a second thought. I didn't know," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "No, you didn't," Marcus said, his tone measured but firm. "You didn't know who I was, but more importantly, you didn't care to know. You judged me based on my appearance, my background, everything but my art. And now, here we are. Confronting the past." Karen struggled to find her footing. I was wrong," she admitted, her voice trembling. "I see that now. I was blind, arrogant. But I never meant to." "To what?" Marcus interrupted gently. "Dismiss someone's dreams? Undermine their potential? Karen, you didn't just turn me away. You turned away the very thing this gallery is supposed to stand for, art that speaks to people, that connects with them." Karen's eyes welled with tears. "I'm sorry," she said, her voice breaking. "I was so focused on keeping up appearances, on maintaining this facade of exclusivity. I lost sight of what really matters." Marcus took a deep breath, his expression softening. "I'm not here to destroy you, Karen. I'm here to rebuild this gallery into something meaningful, something that values all artists, regardless of where they come from or what they look like. A new beginning." Over the next few weeks, Marcus worked closely with Karen to restructure the gallery. She remained as a manager, but under strict conditions. The gallery would now focus on inclusivity and diversity, prioritizing talent and passion over prestige. Marcus brought in a team of curators who shared his vision, transforming the space into a vibrant hub for underrepresented artists. Karen, humbled by the experience, embraced the changes wholeheartedly. She worked tirelessly to rebuild the gallery's reputation, often apologizing to artists she had once turned away. Over time, she earned Marcus's respect, not through words, but through her actions. The grand reopening of Gallery Étoile was a monumental success. The space was packed with visitors, the walls adorned with works from artists of all backgrounds and styles. The atmosphere buzzed with energy, a testament to the transformative power of art and second chances. As Marcus stood in the center of the gallery, surrounded by people celebrating his vision, he felt a deep sense of fulfillment. This wasn't just about proving Karen wrong. It was about creating something that mattered, something that could inspire others to see the beauty and potential in everyone. And as Karen approached him with a genuine smile and a heartfelt thank you, Marcus knew he had done exactly that. A lesson in humility, Karen's redemption arc. The grand reopening of Gallery Étoile marked the beginning of a new chapter, not just for the gallery, but for Karen as well. Under Marcus's leadership, the space had been transformed into a beacon of inclusivity and artistic expression. Gone were the sterile walls adorned with pretentious, avant-garde pieces curated to please an exclusive elite. In their place hung a kaleidoscope of works from artists of all backgrounds, each piece telling a story, evoking emotions, and connecting with the visitors who filled the gallery. Karen, now stepping into her role as gallery manager under Marcus's direction, found herself at a crossroads. The woman who had once prided herself on maintaining an air of exclusivity and superiority was now working alongside the very people she had dismissed as unworthy. It was a humbling experience, one that forced her to confront the prejudices and biases she had carried for so long. A chance for redemption. After the reopening gala, Marcus invited Karen to his office, a newly redesigned space in the gallery, filled with natural light and framed prints of some of his most famous works. Karen entered hesitantly, her posture stiff and her expression nervous. She knew this conversation was coming, but it didn't make it any easier. "Please, have a seat," Marcus said, gesturing to a chair across from him. His tone was calm but firm, the authority in his voice unmistakable. Karen sat down, folding her hands in her lap. "Thank you for keeping me on," she began, her voice quiet. "I know I don't deserve it, after everything." Marcus leaned forward, resting his elbows on the desk. "You're right," he said bluntly, catching Karen off guard. "You don't deserve it. But I believe in second chances, for people and for places. This gallery has the potential to become something great, and so do you. But that's only going to happen if you're willing to change." Karen nodded, her throat tight. "I am," she said earnestly. "I've been thinking a lot about what you said, the way I treated you, the way I've treated so many artists who walked through those doors. I was wrong, Marcus. I let my biases dictate my actions, and I hurt people because of it." Marcus studied her for a moment, his gaze steady. "Acknowledging it is a good start," he said. "But words only go so far. What I need to see from you is action. This gallery isn't going to be about elitism anymore. It's going to be a space where all artists, no matter where they come from, can feel seen and valued. Are you ready to help make that happen?" Karen swallowed hard, her emotions threatening to overwhelm her. "Yes," she said, her voice firm. "I'm ready." The journey to change. Over the next several months, Karen threw herself into her work with a level of dedication and humility she hadn't shown in years. She started by reaching out to artists she had previously turned away, offering them opportunities to exhibit their work in the gallery. Many of them were hesitant at first, remembering the cold dismissal they had faced, but Marcus's influence and Karen's sincerity slowly won them over. Karen also began attending community art events and workshops, immersing herself in the vibrant, diverse world she had once ignored. She listened to the stories of artists, young and old, established and emerging, and found herself deeply moved by their passion and resilience. For the first time in years, Karen felt connected to the art she was curating. It wasn't about trends or prestige anymore, it was about the humanity behind each piece. Marcus, meanwhile, kept a watchful eye on Karen's progress. He saw the effort she was putting in, the way she approached her work with a newfound sense of purpose. One day, as they walked through the gallery together, he turned to her and said, "You're starting to get it." Karen smiled, a mixture of relief and gratitude washing over her. I had a good teacher, she said. Transforming the gallery. The gallery's transformation didn't happen overnight, but when it did, it was nothing short of remarkable. The walls now showcased a rich tapestry of works from underrepresented artists, painters, sculptors, photographers, and mixed-media creators from all walks of life. Each exhibition told a story, celebrating themes of resilience, identity, and the human experience. Visitors from all over flocked to the gallery, drawn not just by the art, but by the energy that now filled the space. The gallery became a hub for community events, hosting workshops, panel discussions, and live performances. It wasn't just a place to view art, it was a place to experience it, to feel it, to connect with it. Karen found herself thriving in this new environment. She was no longer the gatekeeper of an exclusive club, she was a champion for artists who had long been overlooked. She worked tirelessly to ensure that every artist felt valued and supported, often going above and beyond to help them navigate the complexities of the art world. A heartfelt apology. One evening, after the gallery had closed for the night, Karen approached Marcus as he was reviewing plans for an upcoming exhibit. She hesitated for a moment before speaking. "Marcus, I need to say something." Marcus looked up, setting his papers aside. "What's on your mind?" Karen took a deep breath. "I know I've apologized before, but I need to say it again. I'm sorry, for how I treated you, for the way I judged you, for everything. I don't just regret it because of what you've become. I regret it because it was wrong. You didn't deserve that, and neither did anyone else." Marcus studied her for a moment, then nodded. "Thank you for saying that," he said. "I can see that you mean it. And I can see that you've changed." Karen smiled, her eyes glistening with emotion. "I have," she said. "And I owe that to you. You gave me a second chance when you didn't have to. I'll never forget that. A legacy of greatness." Together, Marcus and Karen built a legacy that extended far beyond the walls of Gallery Étoile. The gallery became a symbol of transformation and inclusion, inspiring other institutions to follow suit. Under Marcus's guidance and Karen's management, it grew into one of the most celebrated art spaces in the world, a place where stories were told, voices were heard, and dreams were realized. For Karen, the journey was one of redemption. For Marcus, it was proof that even the harshest rejection could lead to something beautiful. And for the world, it was a reminder that art has the power to change not just hearts, but lives.